make a move and the bunny gets it.
I said, put the bunny back in the box. Why couldn't you put the bunny back in the box?
It's showtime.
Roar. Roar.
Colonel Ironsides here. 200 years I stood in the gap, fighting those who would harm my country. It was my honor, my sacred duty, so help me God. 9 times they took my life. 9 times I stood back up and made them pay. The freedom fighter and I could handle anything, but someone betrayed me. I was ambushed, made mortal, rendered powerless, and retired. They passed an amendment and made me a civilian before I left the hospital. For 50 years I watched my country change. Watched this work while erasing me from history. The day I quit my job, I powered up and discovered they lied about that too. I'll remind them of freedom. I'll remind them of duty. I'll remind them of their oaths and who they serve. I'll remind them while I'm shoving it down their throats.
Hey there, everybody. I have a guest that will be here shortly. I forgot to do the opening crawl today. I kind of got in a little late. It's on me, but you know. Also figured out that I'm going to do the blackout over that drape if I'm going to do this at 6 o'clock during the winter time. But today we're going to talk a little bit about the movement known as Gamergate. Now, my friend Jared, who was on here earlier, but I couldn't hear him, and I was kind of like, he was checking all his settings, and he couldn't. I still couldn't hear him. Well, I should have checked my settings because evidently my computer chose the wrong speakers. And so, as soon as he gets back, I'm going to have to apologize to him. It's live, folks. Sometimes these things happen. But anyway, so we're going to talk a little bit about the Gamergate movement. My friend Jared from Frost Comics was actually a journalist, a games journalist at the time. And he was caught right up in the middle of it. Now, I asked a few people their opinions of Gamergate, and I got some pretty interesting answers. Okay, this one, it's like, let me find it. Well, I did have it. Oh well. Anyway. Okay, this guy, he was pretty much red-pilled about the whole thing. And he said, Gamergate accomplished nothing. Okay, hold on.
Hello? Testing.
Welcome to the show, Jared from Frost Comics.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. The problem was my computer had selected the wrong speakers.
Well,
Yeah.
Don't you love it when that happens?
Yeah. And so you're freaking out and thinking it's all your fault, and it's me. It was me the whole time.
You all along. Yeah.
The call was coming from in the house. Anyway.
Terrible timing.
I'm a horrible host, man. I'm a horrible host. So I just sent an OCD autist down the rabbit hole trying to figure out his equipment, and
I
it was
even pulled up
unnecessary.
sound recorder and I was like, okay, I'm testing it. It's recording. Yeah, before I came in. I'm making sure.
Well, it was funny. Right as you clicked off, I was like, wait a second. Because I was playing the opening stuff and I was like, I can't hear my opening stuff. And it's like, oh no.
Oh, nuts.
Oh no. Yeah.
Nice.
And by that time you'd already clicked off. So I was like, well,
Right.
crap. Anyway.
Huh.
It happens.
It
Stuff
does.
happens. Stuff
Worse
happens.
things have happened too.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least no one is twerking yet.
Yeah, at least no one's twerking. Yeah, thank God for small favors. I found Jack. Hey, welcome to the
What's
show.
up, Jack?
Yeah, he's one of my new regulars. Good to see you,
Nice.
man. Anyway, so what we're going to talk about today is the biggest boogeyman of the left,
Mhm.
especially Grubarab says, come on, pop it up.
What's up, man?
Worst thing has happened. I have arrived. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Well, it is what it is. Anyway, we're going to talk about something that you still see this when you see a hit piece written by some kind of journalist.
You're right.
They always reference Gamergate. Have you noticed that?
I have noticed that.
And it's like I thought it's like it's a boogeyman that lives rent free in their heads.
Yeah.
And to this day, anytime anybody has any kind of movement whatsoever, what's up? Hey, Wiki. But
Hey,
anytime
Wiki.
anybody has any kind of like momentum or whatever, or like they called like when what was his name? He's the Brazilian kid that created the
Sweet Baby Detective, right?
Sweet Baby Ink Detective. It was he's from Brazil.
Yep.
But all he did was like say, okay, well, I'm going to list all the games that Sweet Baby Ink is like messed with. And and suddenly it was like, it's Gamergate 2.0. It's Gamergate 2.0.
Absolutely.
And it's like they went straight to Gamergate. Straight to Gamergate.
I think now is a perfect time to tell you about there's a catchphrase that developed around Gamergate, which is August never ends. And it was because August 2014 was when Gamergate started, and we were still seeing people referencing Gamergate in 2015 and 16 and 17 and 18. Like it was still August 2014. So August never ends became like a running joke / reference to the fact that they continue to bring it up.
Well, it's like it was like the first time they had attempted to cancel people and it failed. It's like the first time they wielded power. And
there was nothing like that before, and they dramatically underestimated how, number one, how angry people were, and number two, how good they were at investigating when they were properly motivated.
Oh, you get a bunch of autism people with autism, you know, and weaponize that.
Oh yeah,
a lot of. I honestly think that's why Doge is so good. It's because he took a whole bunch of autistic kids and turned them loose. You know,
you're not wrong. No, you're not wrong at all about that.
Well, I mean, who are the biggest gamers? Or the most successful gamers are the people that have planar thinking and can
you have people who are get fixated on stuff, and if you get fixated on something, like if you look at, I mean, a lot of speedrunners are nuts. I'm not going to pretend they're not. But if you look at people in like the speedrunning community and people that are really dedicated, you're talking about a guy who plays like, I don't know, Paper Mario for 16 hours a day, every day for, years, because he's trying to beat his completion by 3 seconds or something like that. And so you have someone that has that level of fixation and dedication, and they're now digging through your trash, trying to figure out, okay, well, who did you room with back in college that now has a connection somewhere else? And that's why
if you got somebody that can get to the end of Ghosts and Goblins,
Yeah.
If you got somebody that can go to the end of ghosting goblins successfully, you don't mess with that person.
Yeah, you don't.
Okay.
You're gonna be in bad for a bad day. You have a bad day, man.
Seriously, that's somebody dedicated. Okay,
Yes.
dedicated. Anyway, a Gamergate was that involved in feminist frequency and all that crap. Anita and some other dafty went to you. Yep.
We'll
Yeah,
get to
we're
that.
going to talk
Feminist
about lovely
frequency
Anita.
was tangentially related, and she kind of was the precursor to Gamergate. But it's a messy history. But luckily, I have a mind like a steel trap, and I still remember it because August.
Well, we're going to talk about a certain receptacle for DNA called Zoe Quinn.
Yes, but she
doesn't show up. She's like Fraulein Blucher. Yeah, she's like Fraulein Blucher. You say her word anywhere on X and she pops into your feed. It's happened to me twice, and I was like, oh shit, it's like, anyway. You just don't want to mess with somebody like that. We'll talk about why. She's got when you say body count, she's got like both types of body count.
True. That's actually very interesting. Yeah. One of them is post Gamergate, but it is interesting how she continued to slime her way across the internet. Yeah.
And Zoe was the other dafty. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. Let me get this in right quick. Okay, I had a couple of my friends talk about it, and this guy Pixel Trader, who's big tech geek, he says hot take: Gamergate accomplished nothing aside from getting anyone with a gripe about games labeled as far right misogynist chuds. Okay, which did happen. It did happen. But I think it had longer term effects than that. But this guy here,
I agree and disagree. I'll touch on that in a minute.
Go ahead.
Oh well, so
okay.
In the sense that it accomplished nothing.
Now this guy, you want to talk about? Go ahead.
Well, in the sense that it accomplished nothing, I think that's partially true, and I wouldn't say like what Gamergate accomplished. You can't really point to any one thing. Now, I would argue that they did really contribute to the downfall of Gawker. So I do think that they did contribute to that as far as accomplishments. But I think that if you look at like, depending on how Pixel looks at it, if he's like, what did they accomplish as far as like, did they take down corrupt journalism? Did they do any of the things that they were trying to do? No, they didn't really do that. But they did have a broader accomplishment that wasn't really part of their intended goals, which was Gamergate really genuinely did expose the corruption that existed in journalism, and I mean all journalism. It was focused on game journalism, but it exposed it in a way that was actually like provable, because up to that point, we all know that journalism is corrupt. We all know that journalists were in bed with other people, with corporations, politicians, whatever. That's not like it wasn't like surprising to us. But the thing that Gamergate did was it proved it, because there were things that came out that we could point to and say, okay, now this is legit. Like, because there are things, and again, we'll get to it, but like the Game Journo Pros, which is a mailing list where journalists were all in a conversation with each other, all coordinating their articles, all to push the same narrative at the same time, which is number one, unethical, and number two, they lied about it. And that was a game journalist version of what already existed in media. So the fact that Gamergate actually did either directly or indirectly lead to exposing that to sunlight, I think was a tremendously important accomplishment in that sense. But it's not a tangible victory. It's just like, that they proved something that we kind of knew in our gut. Did it help? Maybe not, but like it did say, like, we can prove it now. Like, we now know that was a thing. So I think that he has a point, but I do think it did accomplish something.
Right. We'll talk about the both good and bad. A little bit later. Girl says, I may have blocked her on Twitter at some point because she was going after everyone. I didn't block folk after or at all, really. Journalism is corrupt. No, say it isn't so. Yeah.
I know, shocking.
Well, see, the thing about it is we know that now.
Yeah.
Okay. Now it's pretty much common knowledge that that corrupt, that journalism is a mouthpiece for some other force. But see, that's one thing that Gamergate did accomplish. Now this guy, he's even more black pilled. I won't give you his name. I think he just, yeah, okay. He said it's all a psyop. Leftists and socialists are always going to do what they've always done by whatever means necessary at their disposal. They still own MSM, mainstream media, Hollywood, gaming, newspapers, etc. Literally nothing has changed. Gamergate accomplished nothing, but it made a bunch of YouTubers famous. So,
I mean, it did make a bunch of YouTubers famous, but like as far as it being a psyop, I disagree with that because, I mean, I was there to the extent that I saw the grassroots organic growth that it had. So it wasn't a psyop in the sense that like none of the things that happened, because you had right now, all the YouTubers that are now famous, they're all interconnected now, but they were not interconnected before Gamergate. So like if you go back to 2012, 2011, you had your Sargon of Akkad, you had your Mundane Matt, you had your Internet Aristocrat, you had all these people, but they didn't really interact. Like you never had them talking to each other. They weren't doing anything together. Right. Medicare, Internet Aristocrat. Exactly. They never really had any communication.
Oh, I'm sorry.
With one another.
That was his name, Internet Aristocrat. Yeah.
They did their own thing.
Right.
They had their own channels. They made their own videos. So like Jim is now, who's Medicare, his name is Jim. Jim is now dying from various cancers and autoimmune deficiencies in Minnesota in his home. Mundane Matt rides, does Uber deliveries in California. Sargon tried to be a politician and now he runs a successful podcast. So like none of these people are really people who would be willing or able to participate in a psyop. So there's not really any cooperation or collaboration between them. So if you want to say that they had some involvement there, I strongly disagree. I would push back on that. And the organic growth.
Well, he is but let me mention this. He is from Canadian.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
Yeah. So in his case, yeah,
that's fair.
Nerds, what's up? Will?
What's up?
Hey. Well, the thing about it is though, the thing I was thinking of the other day is, with this current really shifting culture we're seeing, where a movie such as what is it? Something war, whatever that thing that they put out the other day. That's pretty much a pro Antifa movie or whatever. One war after another. Yeah, Paul something Anderson movie.
Ooh, okay.
Anyway, that movie would have had like Oscar buzz. It would have been pushed by all the outlets, and it would have had a huge opening day. About 2 to 3 years ago. Okay, everybody would have pushed it. All the critics would have just jizzed all over it. And just this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, Right. It probably still win some Oscars because Oscars are, who cares?
Yeah.
But I was just thinking when I saw that one more after another. Yeah, there you go. But when I saw that, it's like so many people, so many normies are calling it out for what it is. It's not just the internet spurgers. It's not just the people who have been fighting this culture war. It's normal, ordinary, everyday people are saying, I'm not going to see that shit. That's like pro Antifa.
Yeah.
And that would not have happened unless there was a shift in culture sometime in the past that's eventually made its way down to the normies. Okay. Yeah. And it's like Andrew Breitbart said, okay, that politics is downstream from culture.
Mm-hmm.
So something upstream, somewhere upstream, there was the river took a bend, and went in a different direction. Yeah. Okay, and the leftists, not us, but the leftists are always calling up this boogeyman called Gamergate. It's living rent free in their heads. They're still writing articles on it, even though all the Gamergate people have kind of moved on.
Yep.
And so they think that's where the river bent. And so, according to them, that's where they started losing control. And so, all due respect to Pixel Trader and my black-pilled Canadian friend, but by their own admission, you name your enemy, okay? And when your enemy names you, then you pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Okay. And the enemy that they name over and over and over again, anytime it's a culture war article or a culture war fight, anytime, a god awful piece of Disney trash comes out and they want to defend it, and they want to badmouth somebody who doesn't like it, they always go back to Gamergate.
Every time, yes.
And so, obviously, even if we personally don't believe that Gamergate, even if a lot of people don't think Gamergate had any long-term effect, the leftists are still referencing it. It's living rent-free in their heads. So if no other effect happened in that, that's significant.
Yeah, well, it's really a matter of perspective, and you have to think about it from our perspective and from their perspective. From our perspective, Pixel's right. Yeah, from what we want accomplished. Like, I remember having arguments with someone about the why it was insignificant to continue to call out Disney movies. Just stop watching the movies. Stop giving them money. Yeah, it sucks. No shit. So don't go see the movie. Stop giving them money. But because for us, what we see as being a victory, as being significant, is that we see like an institution falling, changing direction, something tangible happening. And so for us, that's our win condition, right? So if we don't accomplish that, then nothing happens.
Right.
That's why Pixel's perspective is what he is. But from the perspective of the left, like not having lockstep information control is catastrophic to them, which is why they see it as what they see it as. Because this genuinely was the first time where they did not have control of the narrative, and they could not get control of the narrative. They did everything that they could, and they never once got control of the narrative back, to the point where the Wikipedia page on this is bullshit. It is a lie from start to finish, more than any other page. And the funny thing is, I think this is still true. It is, to this day, the most edited and contested Wikipedia entry on the entire site, because they were trying so desperately to lock it down and prevent anyone who had any amount of editorial access to anything in Wikipedia from being able to change it or correct it or fix anything. So they fought really hard to try and keep Wikipedia, at least, even though they lost the net broadly speaking, they at least got Wikipedia. So it goes into the echo chamber in journalist cycle. Journalist says Gamergate is an abusive, misogynistic, racist, istophobic, whatever. They go back to Wikipedia. They cite Wikipedia. Wikipedia references the journalist who made the claim, and it's just this incestuous Ouroboros. And that's the one thing that they were able to do, because they lost every other thing that they had.
Well, but what that did was it took those media sources down.
Yeah.
And so nobody trusts those media sources anymore. When people were using Snopes to debunk their claims, they took over Snopes and destroyed Snopes. When people were using Wikipedia articles to dispute their claims, they took over Wikipedia and made sure nobody could change the narrative. Every single time that they tried to get narrative control back, people knew what the truth was. And so when they saw the narrative coming from a source, they could identify it as corrupt. And that never happened before Gamergate.
People can say that Gamergate didn't accomplish anything, but the thing that they the flag that the flag that we took that will never ever go back was their credibility. That was Gamergate. That genuinely was Gamergate. And that's something that they never recovered from, because it carried, this is why they still reference it to this day, That momentum was just 2 years away from Trump's election, right? So you had 2 years of media credibility gone, and then that just got carried along with Trump and carried along with the MAGA movement and everything else, which is why they are still terrified of GG to this day.
But I've got a request from the chat. One more after another on the cinema. Next time you say Oscars, play the Gobby clip. I have to play the Gobby clip. This is a request, and this is our friend Gobby from England.
Okay.
Yeah, this is what we think about it.
Who gives a shit? Exactly.
That's gold. That's just gold.
It is.
But anyway, but I'll let you go at this time. Let me get a couple of these. All right, One Piece 3D after another. General DJT.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm the boogeyman. I will get you. Sorry, I was playing WWE 2K24 earlier.
Yeah.
And in Metal Gear Solid 5 earlier, I made my horse take a dump. There's more substance in the pixelated crap than a lefty brain. Okay. All right. I think you're giving it too much credit, but that very, very nice. Anyway. So give us the timeline. You had a detailed timeline.
Yeah. And I apologize in advance for anyone who doesn't want to hear me talk a lot, because it probably will be a lot of that this stream. So feel free to just cut me off if you have any questions.
First of all, give us your why were you so heavily involved with Gamergate, or at least why were you in the nexus of it?
I think that one of the reasons why I'm one of the best people to talk about it now is because I didn't gain anything from it. I'm going to use terms like that might sound a little pretentious, and I know that they're pretentious and I don't take them seriously, but I was in the trenches, as retarded as that sounds. I was in the midst of everything. And so like I didn't like make anything from Gamergate. I didn't profit off of it. I didn't get a big following or whatever. The account that I have now that I use for Frost Comics was once upon a time an account that I used for Gamergate, which is why it has over 1,000 followers. But the only reason I had 1,000 followers from Gamergate was because I was just like a signal boost. So the only thing that I did was I kind of collated people who were trustworthy and who provided valuable information, and then I would retweet it. I would get it to the right people. I would tag the right people, and I would do stuff like that. So a lot of people in 2014 knew who I was in that sense, as a person who was like broadcasting the message out, but that was the only thing that I really gained from it. I watched people that I knew go on to make money off of their e-celebrity. This is a fun fact that I don't talk about very often, but the cover girl for Rags was actually a friend of mine before she became really important and famous. And this card all the little people. Okay. But we were tight in Gamergate when she was a nobody, and we were all doing kind of the same thing. So the people who really profited, I'm not one of them. So I have a very different perspective. I don't have a skewed perspective from someone who profited off of it.
So you're definitely more pure about it.
Yes, exactly. So everything I did was just because I did it. There's a saying, I did it for free. I did it for free. I didn't do anything because I was like putting out a GoFundMe or a Patreon or whatever.
Right.
So, so all of it started. You were correct. All of this did start because of Zoe Quinn. Specifically, it started because of an ex-boyfriend of hers, and his name was Aaron. Is spelled E-R-O-N. But I think it's just pronounced Aaron. He had a weird last name, but I think it was Granji or Garanji or something like that. But he was in game development, and Zoe Quinn was also in game development. And so that's how they ended up dating and everything. So he was cheated on by Zoe, and he was so wounded, was this man, that he wrote this enormous blog post that he called the Zoe Post. And he laid out the timeline of how Zoe had cheated on him with not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 different men. And so the meme became 5 Guys, Burgers, and Fries as a reference to Zoe and her infidelity. And there's a lot of really interesting stuff in there. Zoe, by her own social justice feminist definitions, labeled herself as a R-wordist, where by the way that she considered consent and everything, she had actually done that to her boyfriend. There's lots of really fascinating things in there, but the importance was not this infidelity. The importance was the reaction to it. So we have to go back to a YouTuber named Mundane Matt. Mundane Matt was like the yellow flash of 2012. Okay. Mundane Matt would find a tweet or an article and he would read it for about 10 minutes and he'd publish the video, and he'd do that like 6 times a day. And that was his channel. And so he put up, in his endless search for content, he found the Zoe post and he talked about the Zoe post and put up the video. Well, what do you know? Zoe Quinn found out about it and she got pissed off. And so she DMCA struck Matt and took the video down. So that's kind of the beginning and end of Matt's involvement, because past that, he really didn't have much to do with it. He was just sort of the victim. And but then we get to Mr. Medicare. Jim 81 Jim, Games Good, Me Bad, Internet Aristocrat, Mr. Medicare, whatever you want to call him. At that time, his channel was Internet Aristocrat, and he was doing videos about things like Tumblrisms or just different things, talking about like the social justice invasion. Mostly he talked about the invasion of social justice into education. And that was actually, I was a big fan of his channel because it exposed a lot of this stuff like a good decade before the broader society.
Well, he was like he was like a Rush Limbaugh of streamers.
Yeah,
he was calling out this woke stuff before anybody.
The only between him and somebody like Rush is that Jim was very happy to mock people for being weird, and so he would make fun of furries and everything else. And there are a lot of people who really don't like him very much. But I digress. When Jim heard about what happened to Matt, he was working on a video and he just canceled the video he's working on, and he instead talked about Monday Matt. And so he I think he named it like Hell Hath No Fury Like a Lover Scorned or something like that, or that might have been Matt's video. But when Jim put out his video, it started to get real traction because he had a much bigger channel, he had a much bigger following, and his channel got the attention of Adam Baldwin, of all people, from Hollywood, the guy who's in movies, who played Jane in Firefly. So Adam Baldwin saw the video. Adam Baldwin like tweeted out the video, and it was Adam Baldwin who created hashtag Gamergate to go along with it. So the content, that's how the content spread. Here's why the content's significant. Because like I said, like earlier, it wasn't the fact that this random woman cheated on her boyfriend. So what? It's who she cheated on him with. Because that's what was significant. And that's what got people like angry. Because everyone was interesting for one reason or the other, but there are two names that were especially significant. One was the producer for a game that she worked on, meaning that she had cheated with someone who could have directly benefited her by producing what she wanted to produce. And the other was Nathan Grayson. I remember his stupid name, that smug prick. Nathan Grayson, who was a writer for Kotaku. And the reason why he's interesting is because he was providing game coverage and positive press and all that stuff. So when people saw who she was connected to, it was like, holy shit. So she was treating with people who could advance her career. And that was what like set everyone up. So you had Jim blew it up. Adam Baldwin blew it up. That's when you had everybody else come onto it. That's when you had your Sargon of Akkad, you had Mendon Matt continue to talk about it. So everybody at that time started to really spread it. So that was YouTube, and it was in YouTube comments. But then what really made it kind of blow up, Streisand affected, was that Gamergate, people were trying to talk about it elsewhere. They were trying to talk about it on the escapist forums in particular. They were trying to talk about it at the forums for Polygon, Kotaku. They were trying to talk about it on 4chan. And every single place, even 4chan, every single place where people were trying to talk about it, it was getting 1984'd. It was getting shut down. So no one was able to talk about it, no matter where they tried, except for like on Twitter. So Twitter became like the central place for a lot of this stuff to get spread, and where the Gamergate hashtag saw a lot of traction because it was one of the only places where you could actually discuss it. And not that they didn't try. Like, I don't know why Twitter was as permissive as they were, but it was actually allowing
or bottom
a lot of this
or
stuff to
bottom.
That's true. Everything with Zoe feels like a lateral movement, but I digress.
Yeah.
So this all happens like
come dumpsters are going to come dumpster. So
that's true.
Yeah.
So this happened. If I remember correctly, this video came out like kind of in the middle of the week, and then like it went through the rest of the week, went to the weekend, and then coming into the next week, we saw the same article published 14 times across 14 different outlets. So you had, like, I remember some of the language very clearly. Gamers are over. Gamers don't have to be your audience. Gamers are over. Gamers are this. And it's like, so it was a broad spectrum approach to everyone who identifies as a gamer is a misogynist, is a racist, is a whatever, is a whatever, is a whatever. And so it was it was very suspicious. It was a very suspicious backlash against gaming, against gamers. And everyone was like, what is going on? Like there are too many phrases that don't make sense to have been organically placed there. It's like when you if you pay attention to politics, sometimes you'll go and you'll see Trump's whatever is a dangerous attack against our democracy. And like, you'll see the same thing said on like 16 different news channels.
And they'll use the same phrasing across all the news.
They're using the exact same phrasing. And why is that? Well, it's because they're coordinated.
Right.
And so why do you know this, Pixel? It's because of
the Democratic senators will say the same thing.
Yes, exactly. It's the same thing because they're all playing from the same playbook. And so when
it's like the thing I think is I find interesting about the effects of Gamergate is this was the first time we got it's not only the first time we got to look at the machine, it's the first time we realized that there was a machine.
Yes. And one of the things that was so, like we talked about earlier, one of the things that was so interesting to come out of it was confirmation of what we kind of always suspected. And this kind of came about because of, you mentioned Andrew Breitbart. It came about because of Breitbart, because at the time, I know he's, excuse my language, but he died. It don't as the dangerous faggot, Milo Yiannopoulos. He is now very flamboyant. He's out there. He's a provocateur and all that. But originally, Milo was a tech journalist for Breitbart. So he just was a writer for Breitbart's Tech, where he would cover broader technology, not really gaming, but like just kind of tech in general in the direction of a lot of Silicon Valley stuff. So Milo, because it was kind of in his purview, he took an interest in this. And so Milo legitimized a lot of Gamergate's claims because he would give attention to it where a lot of people tried not to. And it was Milo, and through his connections and everything with Breitbart, where he was able to actually expose that there was in fact a secret game journalist mailing list that was called Game Journo Pros. And Game Journo Pros had your Lee Alexanders, your Ben Kacheras, your Stephen Totillos, your Nathan Graysons. All these people were in that list, and they were coordinating to write the exact same articles at the exact same time to all coordinate the pushback against Gamergate. There was even, I'm sure you could find it probably on Kiwi Farms or somewhere to this day, but the messages that were leaked from the list were like, seriously, like genuinely white knight stuff. Like, we have to defend Zoe. I can't believe they'd slander Zoe like this, Zoe that. They're not concerned in any capacity about reporting or about objective analysis or looking at connections or incestuousness. They don't give a shit. The thing that they cared about more than anything else was protecting Zoe. Why? Because Zoe was sleeping with some of them, or they had friends that were sleeping with Zoe, or because Zoe was an activist that pushed what they cared about, or whatever. That was all they cared about. None of them actually cared about journalism. And it's especially, I think, an indictment of Stephen Totillo. you could make the case that Ben Kuchera is an idiot. Okay, whatever. He doesn't know how to, he can't tell journalism from anything else. He can't tell it from, prose or a tabloid. But Stephen Totilo, he has a degree in journalism. He's trained. He's actually done journalism. So he knew better, honestly, Stephen. He actually knew better, and he was deliberately choosing to look away. He eventually kind of came around a little bit, and he allowed a little bit more discussion in some capacity, but not a whole lot. The first place that really sort of allowed a little bit of back and forth and actual discussion was the escapist forums, where the escapist forums actually did make an executive decision to allow it, to the dismay of one Bob Chipman, by the way. The escapist had Bob Chipman, Movie Bob, and a lot of other people, Yahtzee Croshaw, Zero Punctuation. They were big in the community. And so like Movie Bob was like, if you read like anything from Movie Bob, you will genuinely have and there's a game, you will genuinely have a hard time trying to figure out if you're reading something that was written by a Nazi propagandist or Movie Bob. And it's there's literally a game online where it's Nazi or Movie Bob.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen people play it, and you literally cannot tell the difference.
It is impossible. It is an impossible to win game.
Well, after a while, you figure it out because Movie Bob is way
he's worse,
more vicious
actually.
than
Yes,
the Nazis.
he's a lot more savage.
Yeah, he's worse.
The phrase, there are no bad tactics, only bad targets. That's Movie Bob.
Yep. That's Movie Bob.
That's Movie Bob 100%. And so Movie Bob was flipping out at this time because this came after it was mentioned earlier from chat. Anita Sarkeesian, she actually was a precursor to this by about 2 years. She showed up in 2011, 2012, and there was a negative pushback against Anita. I won't pretend that there wasn't. But the thing about Anita, I know, man. I know, Michael. Anita came, she kind of came under attack. And I put that in quotes because a lot of stuff came out after the fact that was buried because this was pre-Gamergate. But somebody, we have no idea who, somebody spammed her Feminist Frequency Kickstarter project on 4chan. They went to the V board and they spammed the link to it. And so everyone on the board got pissed off because everything had this stupid project replied to it. So who would do that, I wonder? Well, it couldn't be somebody who's going to use the negative reaction to try and garner sympathies and say how we need feminism. It definitely wouldn't be someone who would do that. That's crazy and paranoid. No. But by 2014, Anita had mostly been forgotten about. And it was mostly shifting over to kind of Zoe, but really no one really cared that much about Zoe. As a matter of fact, people got so sick of people trying to, like the left, they got so sick of the left making it about Zoe that they started calling her Literally Who. And so the Literally Who's became a collection of 4 different women that people would say Literally Who instead of referencing anyone that they were trying to use as like a defense. So the first Literally Who was Zoe. Another Literally Who was Brianna Wu. Brianna Wu is that's a whole different stream.
Brianna Wu.
What's up, Dave?
Yeah.
Brianna Wu. So sometimes they'd call her Literally Wu, which I always got a kick out of. Another Literally Who was Randy Lee Harper. And Randy Lee Harper she's a mess, but she's actually smart. Like she actually does make coding contributions to GitHub, and she actually does know her way around coding and everything, but she's also, a blue-haired feminist. Like literally she is a blue-haired feminist. And then the 4th Literally Who eventually did become Anita. So you had the 4 Literally Who's and Brianna Who. And that was how Gamergate kind of tried to deal with it by not referencing them, as the Literally Who. So we talked about this earlier, but it is worth spending another, period of time on it. Gamergate was really, really, really good at two things, and one of them was information gathering. They were extraordinarily good at information gathering. So you had, like you said, you had these hyper autistic people who are used to spending 16 hours a day focused on a speed run, and all of a sudden now they're digging through Leigh Alexander's roommates. They're figuring out who she went to college with. And a lot of this stuff was uncovered. Like when I say roommates, like I'm not using that as just like a passing reference. There were literally people that were roommates with journalists at Kotaku, at Polygon, at different journalist sites that were getting positive press from people that they lived with. And so that is an obvious conflict of interest. That is obviously a situation where the journalists should have recused themselves, and they didn't. And now, and part of it is because part of it is genuinely because they were ignorant. And I mean that in the most literal sense of the word. Like, they did not know they should recuse themselves, because a lot of the people that were hired were Nepo hires or activist hires or whatever. So they did not actually understand ethics in journalism. So that's where one of the things, it's about ethics in game journalism. That's one of the memes that came out of it. It was legitimately about ethics in game journalism. It was about ethics in journalism broadly. And a lot of the people did not understand that. So that was some of the stuff that was genuinely uncovered. So information gathering was the first thing. The second thing was the meme war. And a lot of this came to prominence in 2016 with Trump, but you had the Pepes and stuff like that. Those were all things that kind of really saw prominence in Gamergate. And in particular, they someone, I can't remember who, because at the time, but someone created a mascot for Gamergate, and it was a ginger girl that was a gamer holding the controller, and her name was Vivian James, like video games. And so she would be like this mascot that would go along with information dumps. And so you would have people like me who would get information dumps that had connections, that had nepotism connections and all this different stuff. And it would get broadcast out. And then so people would see the hashtag, or they'd see the mascot, or they see the memes or whatever else. And then you would see all of the information that came along with it. So the meme war and information gathering were the two things that they did really, really, really well. Now, it is true that they were very good at gathering information, digging up information, digging up connections. But there is also a kind of an unspoken fact, and this is still true to this day. The left is so comfortable with everything that they actually they don't have a concept of infosec. That's still true. They don't know what it's like. So to give you an example, I saw this the other day. Someone joked about how if you're on the right, you're going to switch on your VPN, sign into your alt account, and then you're going to be brave enough to say that Rashida Tlaib is stupid. Meanwhile, you have people on the left who, with their God-given name connected to their LinkedIn at a hospital, will celebrate Charlie Kirk being killed, right? That's the difference between the amount of control that exists between the left and the right. And this was abundantly clear in Gamergate, where we saw that firsthand, where you had to be we had to walk on eggshells. There was no sense of humor. You couldn't say anything that was even remotely just a little bit edgy. So everything had to be super sanitized and careful, because the slightest thing, your account was gone. I probably got banned 4 or 5 times on different accounts or whatever. And I'm me. I was barely any more edgy than I am now. I was just a little more, I don't know, outspoken, I guess. I had a lot more free time. I didn't have 3 kids. So that was really the case, where it wasn't hard to find this information. It wasn't hard to find people talking about who they dated, or who they slept with, or who they roomed with, or who they went to college with. This was stuff that was all out there, because they had no concept of fear or reprisal or anything. Of course we're going to be activists, because screw you, we can do whatever we want. And that never really changed. That's still around today. That's not any different.
Well, let me make the point Well, let me make the point that they didn't face reprisals from the mainstream, and they still to this day have not gotten reprisals from the mainstream.
Exactly right.
What Gamergate set up was reprisals coming from the public,
Yes.
and it organized the public to give those reprisals because the mainstream was not. And
Right.
that's one of the reasons why it became the big boogeyman, is because they were actually getting like feedback. They were actually getting memed. They were getting torched and made fun of. And because they'd never had that happen to them before, they're all a bunch, part of this nepotism system,
Yep.
where people were basically promoted above their station routinely just because of what they spouted or who they knew or who they blew in Zoe's case.
Exactly. Yeah. And that is exactly the case, because there were a lot of things I remember leading up to 2014. Like I was watching a lot of Internet Aristocrat Medicare, and he did a lot of videos talking about things like Suey Park, who said that cancel Colbert, like Colbert was racist. Colbert, freaking Colbert. So you had people like her that were activists. You had Anita. You had, and in particular, I mentioned to you this to you the other day. There was an article written about Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2, and it was written by a woman, I think for Polygon or Kotaku. I can't remember which one, but they were talking about how Dracula feeding on a woman perpetuated rape culture, and like nobody who wants to play Castlevania gives a shit. We just want to play Castlevania. But like this had been like working through all of the game journalist outlets. It was all over all of them. It was in every article. Like we still, it's not like things have gotten better, to Pixel's point. Like you can still go into an IGN article to this day, and they'll put like, well, it's an 8.5. It would have been a 9, but she's too sexy. That'll be like a note. Like that's like the kind of people that it started back then,
Right.
So what this kind of did was it shined a light on that, because as Gamergate dug and found all these connections, all this incestuousness, it, like we said before, it validated this creeping suspicion we had that a lot of this stuff has been slowly infiltrating games, and we didn't really have proof of it until then. And then we had proof that no, it is infiltrating it. It is deliberate. Right. They are nepotistic. They are bringing in people. They are replacing everybody with people who are ideologically like-minded. So GG made a lot of this make sense. So you had people digging it up, you had people doing the memes, and so gamers were like, okay, so what do we do to fight back? Because it's like you said, there was no mainstream reprisal. There was no way that we didn't have an outlet. We didn't have a Kotaku. We didn't have anything that we could hit back with. What we had some YouTube channels, but YouTube at this point, like we're at a point now where yes, that's true. It's fine to kill a man, but it's not fine to drink blood from a woman. That's rape culture. Thanks, feminism. Anyway, so you look at nowadays, someone like freaking Destiny can be on a Pierce Morgan program, and Pierce Morgan himself is on YouTube. But a decade plus ago, that was like unheard of still, right? So while we had big channels like Sargon and Medicare who were talking about this, it wasn't mainstream attention. So it was kind of like, what did we really have? So what we did have was organization and boycotts. So there was a lot of really clever stuff that we did to hit back against the journalists and their organizations. And one of them was redirects. There were actually browser extensions that were developed that you could plug into Chrome. And if someone sent you a link and it was to Kotaku, or if there was a link or whatever, it would automatically redirect from the Kotaku article. It would archive it on archive today or archive.is or whatever and send you to the archive so you weren't giving them a click. And then if anyone else clicked on the article, they immediately got redirected to the archive. So it was all about hitting them in the wallet as hard as they could. The biggest target was honestly Kotaku. Polygon might have been worse as far as like their behavior and their articles, but for everyone really just kind of hated Kotaku, so we kind of hit Kotaku the hardest. And I remember that there was either an investors meeting or there was something, but they did confirm that ever since the Gamergate stuff started over whatever period of time, that we did cost them over $1 million in revenue because they were not getting advertisers. Because that was the other thing that we did. It wasn't just redirects and stuff like that. We were really, really, really aggressive about contacting advertisers. And I mean, all sorts of advertisers. We were going to NVIDIA. We were going to game PC stores. We were going everywhere that there was an advertiser with an affiliate link. We were contacting them en masse via emails, getting them to drop their sponsorship. A lot of them did. Some of them didn't. I'm not saying it was a perfect plan, but like a lot of people dropped it, and they would cite the reason was because the people that they were sponsoring were adversarial to their client base. So there was genuinely some difference being made, at least as far as hitting people in the wallet. And like I said before, I genuinely think that this did play a part in Gawker eventually going out of business. And if for anyone, if you're not aware, Gawker, they used to be a website that had affiliate websites. Kotaku was one of them. Kotaku was their gaming website. They had a bunch of others. Gawker was basically an internet tabloid, and they showed a sex tape of Hulk Hogan.
TMZ, but TMZ, but with less ethics.
Yes, a less ethical TMZ. That's a perfect way to describe it. So they put up a sex tape of Hulk Hogan. They refused to take it down. He sued them, and his lawsuit was bankrolled by Peter Thiel. And then, they lost the lawsuit, and they lost so much money on the lawsuit that Gawker went bankrupt, and they had to sell Kotaku. But I mean, losing $1 million of revenue is that's not insignificant. So I think the fact that Gamergate did cost them so much money did play a part in Gawker going down. And well, there you go, because of Hulk Hogan. But I mean, I'm not saying that Gamergate deserves credit over Hogan and Thiel. Thiel's pockets and Hulk Hogan having a good case. I mean, ultimately that's what did it. But I mean, if you had $1 million that you can fight a lawsuit with, and all of a sudden you don't, I mean, that's pretty significant, right? So I'm saying that is worth mentioning. So I think that if you look at
one thing that I think that one thing that needs to be said is that the even if they didn't directly like take things down, they created the atmosphere to make that possible.
Yes.
That the first time I really saw this was in 2016, the female Ghostbusters that came out. And that's the first time I ever saw people directly attack the customer base.
Yeah.
For not liking something that they produced. Oh, very aggressively. Yeah. But that was kind of I didn't realize that like 2 years earlier when Gamergate started, that's their reaction to Gamergate. And it became industry standard to fight against a counter narrative. And I think that started with Gamergate. And it's backfired on them ever since. And for every time that somebody did not like an acolyte or something like that, and suddenly you've got some Nepo baby, privileged silver spoon chick dancing and telling the fans where to go.
Yeah.
That doesn't fly anymore because this whole entire ecosystem was created to where it's like, you know what? They're not the only game in town now. They're not everybody, once upon a time, that some move like that would have been just, I mean, like the way I knew it was that celebrity culture was finally completely well and truly dead was when all the Avengers jumped onto a call pushing Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
And not only did it not move the needle, everybody collectively rolled their eyes.
Yeah.
And I was like, that proves that I mean, the whole entire Kamala Harris, like, she was doing that old trick of pulling every single celebrity and showing that every single celebrity had her back, and that it was pushing for her, and the culture at large rejected that in mass. That's as the us and them, because
Yes.
once upon a time, maybe back in 2014, this group of normal, ordinary people discovered that they had power, and that they didn't have to put up with this shit anymore. And they were the first ones, and it spread like it's like if any dam will fail if one crack appears. It only takes one crack to appear. That's why as soon as they see a crack, they'll immediately fix it, or shut the whole thing down.
Yeah.
It's because it only takes one crack to compromise the wall, and that whatever's holding it back. And I personally believe that Gamergate was that crack, and the fact that everybody kind of went to the four winds, that matrix that was created is no longer in place. There might be some people like Grums who are still actively pointing this stuff out, but it spread over into comics. It spread over into Friday Night Tights wouldn't exist without Gamergate.
100% true.
A critical drinker open bar would not, because they discovered that they could form a matrix and push back. And that would not have happened before Gamergate. Gamergate, I believe, was the first shot on the war. It was the shot heard around the world on the internet.
Yeah. Well,
and that's why that's why it's still living rent free in their heads.
They say, the left can't meme, right? Where did that come from? So it genuinely had its genesis in Gamergate, because like if you had people who were posting article after article after article saying how everyone hates women, everyone hates blacks, everyone hates gays, everyone this, that. But like, you have the reason why the left can't meme, where that phrase comes from, is because memes work because they're short, simple, and true. And if you have anything that is not those three things, which is, I would argue, leftist ideology, then you can't make it short, you can't make it simple, and it's not true. And so you didn't have memes from the left, and Gamergate was not inherently right wing. It was just an inherently like, this is truthful.
No.
It was made right wing by the people who were opposing it being on the left, even though it was not. It's like when
the Overton window. Yeah.
It's like speech. Speech has become a right wing issue when it used to be an American principle, but now it's a right wing issue. It shouldn't be a right wing issue, but it is. I didn't make it a right wing issue. You didn't make it a right wing issue. The people on the left made it a right wing issue. So it's the same thing with Gamergate. Gamergate it had gay people, black people, it had women, lesbians, it had all these different. Milo Yiannopoulos himself is a Catholic, Jewish, gay, British man. Okay, like you had all these different people.
He's since renounced being gay, by the way.
He has, yes.
He's renounced being gay, by the way.
But at the time, he was aggressively gay, and that was the kind of person that was in Gamergate. It was everyone. It was everybody that was in there, and they were all sharing memes that were short, simple, and true. And so that carried over into MAGA and the election, and it carried. And so, like, there was a joke. Mundane Matt, after he fell into obscurity, he came on to a live stream once, and he said that I'm responsible for getting Donald Trump elected, which is one of the most absurd statements that anyone has ever said. But there is a degree of some element to it that you could say, okay, if you take it to the most insane extreme, yeah, I guess so. Because a lot of the stuff that came about because that was originated in Gamergate. And so like the fact that like that reaction where that Streisand effect happened, where they locked it down, where the like that was kind of like where hitting people in their wallet, that kind of came about because of Gamergate 2. The problem was that tactic was being used by an upstart, grassroots to try and fight back against a bigger entity. When that flipped and the left realized that they could start doing that too, then you had institutional mainstream media supported power that was hitting small people in their wallet. And that's where cancel culture actually came from, because it was no longer us trying to get NVIDIA to stop selling their video cards on Polygon. Now it was all of institutional Twitter, backed up by education, backed up by Wikipedia, backed up by everything else, saying actually, Rush Limbaugh just hates gays and blacks, and he hates everyone, and that's why it's good that he's dead. That's how things flipped. And so like you saw tactics that began there get flipped over and weaponized and mutated into a horrible direction, which is unfortunate.
Well, I mean, where do you think the whole idea that Trump suddenly had to go straight to the people and stop using the media outlets, stop using all the traditional avenues? That happened in 2016. That was, it was 2 years old.
Yep.
And Charlie Kirk started circulating the RNC looking for investors around 2016.
That was the point of turning point, was to bypass that and go right to the people.
And the whole entire, before that point, before Gamergate, people thought that there was a way that they could still work through the system.
Yeah.
They thought that there's a way that the traditional outlets, the traditional ways of doing things. But then Gamergate revealed that it's all rigged.
Yeah.
And it's hopeless to use traditional avenues to get the word out to basically to fight the system, because you can't fight the system. You have to make a new system.
Yeah, the system
And
has to fall.
I've tried. And so I tried to look for something earlier than Gamergate, and I've yet to find anything earlier than Gamergate, because everything you might find like pockets of it all in history.
Yeah.
Where people would gather, like old, Nazis. The Nazis came from the beer halls, hall speeches, and that's how they organized or whatever. And you also see in like the 60s, all of the Woodstock and things like that were completely out from the outside. And but this was something
if you look at before,
different.
There are elements of what became Gamergate. There are elements of that were in Occupy Wall Street, but Occupy Wall Street was co-opted and perverted from the inside and turned into something that was a complete parody of itself.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that's really interesting, because the left was able to do that. They were able to infiltrate it and have people talk about their pronouns and introduce themselves as ketchup and have drum circles and all this stupid shit. That never worked with Gamergate, because I know it's cringy. Okay, I get it. But gamers were united in a way that like a lot of other communities weren't. And there really is a community in gaming where they really don't give a shit if you're gay or black or whatever. It's just, do you make good games?
It's a band of brothers.
It really is, especially in the multiplayer component, co-op component. Like there are people who is just like that just want to play games and have fun, and that was really it. So it didn't have something that was inherently vicious that could be co-opted and turned against itself. Go figure.
It's the man that wants to be left alone by
Yes.
Yes. Solzhenitsyn. You know, nobody is
Exactly.
more violent than the man that wants to be left alone. That's
exactly
forced
it,
to
yeah.
fight because you have taken from him his peaceful self, and he will never forgive that.
Yep.
And I think in a lot of ways these gamers was and if you're thinking that there's anything positive about the other side, don't forget that Zoe Quinn intentionally drove her boyfriend to suicide and then bragged about it
Yeah.
through
Alex-
a Me Too
Alex
accusation.
Halawaka.
Alex
That's his name.
Halawaka. Yeah, Halawaka. And guess who funded Ghost Gamers and which eventually bled into Sweet Baby Inc. Alec Holowachuk's sister.
Yeah, that's something that I'm so
Alex
happy that you
Halawaka's
mentioned
sister.
her, because one of the things that if you ever think that you can reach common ground with these people, I want you to stop and look up the fact. This is true. Don't take our word for it. Zoe Quinn drove Alex to suicide, and Alex's own sister threw him under the bus and stuck up for the feminist sisterhood. That is evil on a level I can't fathom. And it's just par for the course. Okay. It's just normal.
Yeah. Well, is there anything you want to conclude with? Any statement you want to make to conclude with?
I guess I would say that Gamergate didn't really die. It just sort of collapsed. And in a way, like, I think it's not exactly the most noble of exits, but I kind of like the fact that it never was really beaten. And so there is something to that that's kind of neat. They never beat Gamergate. Gamergate eventually ran out of momentum because there was a lot of discussion from the outset where we need a leader. And you had some people who really did want to be a leader. At one point, I remember this, me and a bunch of other people, we all changed our name to the true leader of Gamergate. So you had everyone who was the true leader of Gamergate.
I am Gamergate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
I am the leader of Gamergate, right?
It was very funny. And like people like Jim Mediker, he would always insist you cannot have a leader. It has to be decentralized. If you have a leader, then it will fall to ruin, because then they'll have someone that they can attack. Then they'll have someone they can go after. If we're all just anonymous, then they have no one that they can go after. But as people wanted to become more and more prominent and rise to more prominence and get more money and grift off of it, this is unfortunately kind of where the griftosphere started as well. That's kind of how it collapsed. Right. And so it was never really beaten. It was just co-opted by people that did not have the most noble intentions, as a lot of the foot soldiers, like, yours truly, and people who weren't making any money off of it, who were just doing it because they were doing it for free, because they were passionate. So I take some comfort in that. I also lament it. It's kind of bittersweet in a lot of different ways. And I ultimately think that it did accomplish more than people realize. And it is memed on appropriately. It is a running joke, but I think it's still true in October of 2025, just as it was October of 2014. August never ends, and I don't think it ever will.
There you go. Well, I will say this, that Anonymous, who is very left-leaning, around that time, they were, they are now. But they were kind of like somebody was trying to like pit them against Gamergate.
Yeah.
And they took a look at that army of autistic people, that spend their entire lives online. And they went, nope.
Never mind. Screw that. Yeah.
So, I mean, I mean, there's nothing. One of my favorite podcasts I watch is called Unsubscribe, and they call the guys who subscribe to their channel the weaponized autism, and they have aimed those people at targets in the past, and you can't you really have. I mean, when they created all these autistic people, most of them Gen X, this whole group of autistic people that pretty much is next. I mean, I'm autistic myself. I don't know what happened around that time that created all these autistic people, but what happened is you got people that have a superpower of being obsessive, obsessively focused on one thing. And when you aim all those obsessively focused people in one direction, you can utterly and completely change everything. And I think that lesson is the biggest lesson from Gamergate. And they can't put it back in the box.
If you doubt it, just ask Shia LaBeouf and how people found his flag by finding the direction of the wind and the sun.
Yep.
Oh, he will not divide us. Okay.
No, you will not.
Game on.
Anyway, well, thank you for coming on, Frost.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, everybody that came today. We had 33 eyes between our teams, and I appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank
you, chat.
Anyway, we will see you next time. Make sure you if you don't know who Frost Comics is, make sure you subscribe to his channel. He does a lot more clever stuff than I do. I do live streams, but
you're consistent. So if they actually want content, stay here.
Well, I don't have 3 little crumb crunchers crawling all over me, so you got to get back to. Anyway,
that's fair.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming, and we will see you next time. Follow the White Rabbit, and bye, everybody.